Thank you all for coming. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to do this. And thank you for showing up, because it's super easy to sign up for these things and then decide, oh, I have other things to do, right? So I want you to be impressed with yourself for just a minute and thank yourself for coming. I want you to take time to enjoy this and make space for this. There's not going to be a lot required from you today, but I do want you engaged and I want you present. And it is a workshop. So you're going to be writing things down. You're going to be thinking things through. And so I want you to have paper and pen and keep your camera on as much as possible. I do love to see your faces and see your reactions. And I also can see if you're working and when you're done so that we can move on. I'm going to start a timer so I don't keep you here forever, because I could definitely do that. You are being here is really what this is going to be about, is about looking at the big picture. This is not the program I run and the way that I look at life and health. It's not about the number on the scale. It is about really looking at the big picture, stepping back and talking about that. So these are going to be tips and practices and ideas that you will be able to use today. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
We would love to see your face if you are camera ready. We are recording, but we won't see you unless you're speaking when your camera is on. And we are happy you're here. And I want you to take a second to be impressed with yourself because you showed up. I want you to be super impressed with yourself because you showed up. Like I said, it's super easy to show up to sign up for these things and then be like, well, it's Thursday night. It's fine. I don't need to go. But you're here, and that is impressive. I'm going to give you tips and practices and ideas today that you're going to be able to use today. I've heard a line in this song by Incubus: "The world's a roller coaster and I'm not strapped in." Every time I hear that song, it cracks me up, and it just sounds like life, right? But this is a small way that you are strapping in today. You are strapping in to take care of yourself. This is a moment in time when you can put the oxygen mask on your own face first. So these are small ways that we do this. We'll use the chat box for questions and answers, but save your questions till the end and I'll ask during different portions. So take a big, deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. I want you to do that again while I talk you through it. When you breathe in through your nose for the count of, say, 4, and then you breathe out through your mouth like you're breathing through a straw. What that does is exercise your diaphragm muscle to touch your vagus nerve, to turn down the sympathetic nervous system and tap into the parasympathetic nervous system to tell you and your body that you are okay. And we spend a lot of our time in this mild fight or flight syndrome. And so it's really important for us to practice that kind of deep breathing. And we'll talk about that again in a minute. So after all that said, deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth like you're breathing through a straw. Shoulders away from the ears. And when you take that breath, I want you to think about your shoulders being down, because we all do this kind of thing. Or if I say, take a deep breath, and my clients go, oh. I'm like, well, no, in your belly, hands on your belly button, in through your nose where your belly button moves out like a straw, where your belly button scoops back in. Again, we want to activate that vagus nerve, all right? So we're going to talk about, well, when I ask you the question, is there a difference between a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle? I want you to wonder what pops into your head. And is there a fountain of youth? Is there an answer to the right way to do things? And does someone you know, or an influencer or celebrity, seem to have this all figured out? They have all the answers, right? They know exactly how to do it. I'm sure that's Gwyneth Paltrow. I believe actually that you all have, okay, I don't believe that. Those of you who know me know that, but I absolutely do not believe that. I believe that you have the answers. I believe that you know the answers for yourself. I believe in my heart of hearts, and I see it all the time, that you have the answers for yourself. And you are the best scientific experiment for your own self. Because what works for me or what works for Victor or Suzanne are entirely different things. And so when you really listen and you stay in touch, you get to decide what fits for you. and what lights you up. So as I'm talking tonight and we're going through things, I want you to think, oh, yes, that's the piece. Oh, wait, I hadn't thought of that. I want you to really think about the nuggets that make sense in your journey, because it's different for everybody. Because what we're trying to do, and in the work I do, is everybody's on a spectrum, and everybody is either in this, well, they're not in this, I want to say junk food eating, unhealthy, no energy, feeling crummy, couch potato situation, or they're in some sort of utopian, perfect, I don't even know what that would look like, side of the spectrum, and everything in between. So we all sit in between there, right? And my job and our job together is to move you along that spectrum closer to some sort of utopian idea of what's right for you. So when you start moving along that spectrum and you feel strapped in, you feel like you're in a groove and you feel like you're living your best healthy life, that's when these healthy habits start getting a lot easier. That's when doors start to open out of the blue and things start to really make sense. So when you feel stuck, the key is to listen to your body, listen to your dreams, and maybe even tonight, lay your head down on your pillow and ask yourself, what is there to know about all that I learned tonight? And see what bubbles up overnight and in the morning when you lift your head off the pillow and it says something like, ooh, yoga. Who knows? It's possible. So I want you to think about that. I see it happen all the time, the changes over the years, both on your plate, the nourishment on your plate, right? And the nourishment off your plate. Those are things like the joy you bring to your day, spirituality and how that's important to you, your relationships, your career, your education, all those things balance out our lives. And so I want you to figure out what's next. And that's one of our jobs, number one, tonight in this workshop. So where do you start? Well, you know what? You started. You're here. So you've already started. And maybe you've done things in the past and you've had some momentum and you've fallen off. And maybe some of your healthy habits have stuck and some have fallen away. And why is that, right? But you've started again, because I believe it's my username on Peloton is begin again daily, because that's what we got to do. You just begin again in any moment and you start again. So you're here, you've started. And what to expect today is it's so hard for me because every topic can be hours long, right? And I want to give you more and more and more, but I have to cut myself off for sure. So what I want you to do, I'm going to give you an overview today of what it's like to work with a coach, some very specific ideas, and I want to get you thinking. I want to get you thinking about the nuggets of where you need to tuck in the edges around your own habits. And like I said, I'm super frustrated because I want to give you more and more and more, but I had to cut myself off in some areas. But I'm going to give you everything I possibly can. And if you need or want more, I'm going to give you some tips at the end if you need and want more to keep you accountable and keep you moving forward. So we will cover nutrition tips for sure. We're going to talk about snacking and cravings under that. We're going to talk about nourishment off your plate. And then we're going to set some goals and you're going to walk away with some next best steps. So it's very tactical. First, a little bit about me, and then we'll get into the weeds. Is that a good expression to use? I'm not sure today, but about me, I've been coaching since 2017. I had a culinary school for 10 years before that, teaching cooking classes to kids and adults. It was a ball. I'm a mom. Of 3 kids. I'm a wife. I'm an athlete because there's never been a time in my life when I haven't moved my body in some way. I'm a great friend. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a traveler. I'm a nomad and a homebody, all at the same time. And I'm also a board certified health coach. So what is a health coach? So a health coach is a personal guide. And have you guys ever read that children's book, I Want to Be Your Personal Penguin?
No.
Oh, I was really hoping someone had read it because it's a cute little book and that's what I thought in my head. So anyway, I'm your personal penguin, cheerleader, and a partner on this health and wellness journey. A health coach is deeply and broadly educated. And as a board certified health coach, I'm an expert grounded in reality, right? You know what I'm talking about, focusing on you and your own individual body and its needs. So many people can talk about the health and wellness field and they can show you all sorts of products and supplements and things like that and call themselves a nutritionist. But when we're board certified, We have a scope of practice to guide, suggest, and educate. We don't prescribe, we don't do blood work, we don't tell you what to eat, we don't tell you what supplements you have to take. We work together often with your doctor to make sure that every step you take is grounded in reality. It's not a weird health fad, and well researched and backed by your doctor when necessary. A great health coach is going to keep you accountable to your goals and build a really large, this is the beautiful part, a large box of tools together with you that you can use for sustainable lifelong change. So it's not a diet. It's not something where you check a bunch of boxes and I tell you, you do these 10 steps and then you reach your goals. It's individual around your own health and well-being. And why should we bother with this at all? This is my last little story, and then we will jump into our slides and get to work. The reason that I bother with this and the reason that I get out of bed and do this work every day is I'm going to tell you a quick little story. One of my very first clients, when I was started off in 2017, a friend of mine, his husband was struggling with stage 4 colon cancer. And it's hard for me to tell. And he had about a week to live. He had been struggling for 2 years. And the family came and said, is there anything you can do? And I said, well, I can't cure cancer yet. Who knows? But I can't cure cancer, but I know I can try and make him feel more comfortable. So I made this magic veggie broth that's actually not my recipe. It's by Rebecca Katz, and it's an amazing magic broth, together into a cruciferous veggie soup to cleanse his liver and to give him hydration. And I instructed the family to give him like 1/8 of a cup or whatever they could every hour around the clock to give him hydration, as well as much nutrition as we could get in because he had stopped eating. I didn't know what would happen, but I took my experience and said, here's what I have to give. And within 24 hours, he was up off the couch. Within 48 hours, that man was in the kitchen figuring out how to cook for himself. And he had the best last 6 months anyone could have ever hoped for under his circumstances. And there were moments in those 6 months where he was curled up and he was hanging with his teenage daughters. And he said, this feels like heaven. He traveled, he was ordained to officiate at a family wedding. He spent time with his teenage daughters and he left this legacy of health and well-being. And so here's my question for you. If nutrition and hydration can do that much for that sick of a body, what can it do for all of us? Right? Shouldn't we all be behaving that way? That's the thing, it gives me chills. That's the thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. And that's why I'm here to talk to you, because this kind of work could save your life and we'd never know it. I'd like to never know it. I'd like to live to 150 and never know that I skated by all sorts of disease and illness. So with that said, I want to make sure you have your water, right? You've got your water. We're going to be here for a while. You've got your workbook printed and handy. You've got paper. If not, you've got a pen. You took a deep breath. We make 2,200 decisions about our food every single day. The average adult makes about 35,000 remotely conscious decisions daily. Every day in life is life in miniature. And how we create each day begins to form a pattern. So with that said, I am going to finally share my screen, although I'm loving looking at you guys. And we're going to get to work, all right? Anybody have any needs at this point? No, all right. This is your first worksheet. I'm putting you right to work because you've listened to me long enough, right? You are going to take a moment and you're going to fill this out and put down whatever you ate yesterday. If you really can't remember yesterday, because I hear you, you could put today, but you may not have had dinner and your late night snack. So I would prefer that you write down everything that you ate yesterday, including the times as best you can. So this, keep in mind, is not a prescription, okay? Because again, scope of practice of a qualified board certified health coach is to give you tips and ideas and suggestions. So I work with my clients to put these together. And what this has is a variety of ideas of what you could eat throughout the day that would give you variety and balance, nutritional balance, okay? And we're going to talk more about that. So I've given this to you in your handbook, in your workbook. You have all of this information. And the times of day are important because in a lot of the work that I do, people aren't eating enough, and they're not eating often enough. And with the rise of diabetes and blood sugar issues, it's important to stay consistent. So that's what the first half of your day can look like. This does not mean that you eat all of these things all of the time. There's a variety of choices in there. And like for dinner, because you may be a vegetarian, or you might have vegetarians in your household and carnivores and vegans like I do, and so you want to include things like a protein, a veggie, a whole grain, a healthy fat. And an idea would be a veggie soup. And then if you're in my household, you're a veggie soup for me. And then you chop up, chicken, apple sausage and throw that in for the meat eaters. So this is just an idea of timing of the type of things that you'd want to eat. And it's not a prescription. But when you work with me, you get to personalize this for yourself. And I've worked with athletes, I've worked with kids going off into a dorm, right? They're suddenly stuck with a microwave and whatever fits under their bed. And so we're trying to figure out how to get these pieces and parts in there. I have them written for watching your weight, for weight gain, for vegetarians, and we get to personalize it for goals, taste buds, and family. So that I love doing. And I wanted to share this. So this is the USDA plate as it was revised, I want to say 2011, but it's better, and it shows the food groups that we're talking about, but you notably can see that it's requesting that your drink of choice be the dairy, and many people don't drink milk. And there's nothing that says you have to drink milk except for maybe the dairy lobby that required it to be there. The integrative nutrition plate, you can see, has the food groups. It's got 50% of your plate are vegetables and fruits, and they differentiate not just grains, but it's whole grains. And then protein. And protein, it used to be big slabs of meat on the myplate.gov, but now it's protein because it can certainly be plant-based. But you'll see there's that little icon and it says fats and oils. This is in your workbook as well. And it's important to leave a sliver on each of your plates for healthy fats. And we're going to get into that. And then what is the drink of choice? Water. And the thing notably missing as well on the myplate.gov are the things that nourish us off our plate. And we're going to do an exercise around that as well today. Physical activity, relationships, spirituality, and career are some of the things that nourish us off our plate that we need to consider, because you can eat all the broccoli in the land, but how healthy and well are you if you hate your job, or you hate where you live, or you're in bad relationships, or, the list goes on. And then I'm super impressed by the Canadian Food Guide, which I included here because it's a beautiful graphic. And this is in your workbook. They have the food groups, they've got it represented. They have plant-based proteins in there. They make water your drink of choice. And they talk specifically about how eating healthy is more than just the foods you eat. That when you eat, you think about the Europeans, they're not necessarily shoving food in their mouth while they drive 80 miles an hour on the freeway to get to their next meeting just in time. So you want to be mindful of how and where and when you're eating. When we cook more often, we get less sugar, salt, and fat in our diet because we have control. Enjoying your food and being together with people and learning how to read food labels. And then limiting foods high in sodium, sugars, and saturated fat, which we will talk about specifically in a minute. And then becoming educated about food marketing. So food marketing is tricky, right? Because they can say things like natural and I'm trying to think natural. They can even say organic, but without the USDA organic bug, it doesn't mean anything. And so I want you to become educated about that. And I'm going to give you a source to become more educated in just a second. So this is the new nutrition fact label. And the organization I want you to be aware of is called the Center for Science in the Public Interest. They put out a newsletter, right? They put out a newsletter called Nutrition Action Newsletter. And they are the best. They are not funded by the dairy lobby. They're not funded by anybody but you and I. And they are going to work in Washington, D.C. to make our food supplies safer. They are the people that got the added sugars added to our nutrition label. They are the people that got the calories put on restaurant, billboards and restaurant menus and things like that. So they're working hard for us, and I highly recommend you check them out, join the newsletter, do whatever you got to do, and get involved. And Chloe put that in the chat. She put the link in the chat. So check that out. Wait, I'm not ready for that. Oh, wait. No, don't give away my surprises. So let's walk through this for just a bit. So first thing I want you to look at on the nutrition label is serving size. So one of the tricky things that manufacturers do is, in order to make the calories look smaller, they get the serving size smaller. And so they might say, like, think about granola a lot, because granola, if you eat it like cereal, it's like a cup and a quarter. I mean, it's a lot. And then they'll put 1/8 of a cup on the nutrition serving size. So I want you to be mindful of what the serving size says and ask yourself if that's realistic amount that you might actually eat. And then the fats. So as you can see on here, saturated fat and trans fat are pulled out. Thank you to CSPI. Those are the fats you want to be aware of. It's not that trans fat is made it's factory made, and it is not good for us. It's created industrially. I wasn't sure if that was a word, so I was trying to think of another way to say it. But saturated fats are not evil. It's about, but that doesn't mean that they're beneficial, if that makes sense. And that they can be, at best case scenario, neutral, depending on who you are, how your blood work looks already. So I want you to look for 0 trans fats in your life, and I want you to keep the saturated fat to not exceed 10% of your calorie intake. So calorie intake is, I don't work with calories all the time, because it's, who knows, right? But if there's a standard diet that's, say, 2,000 calories, then 10% would be 200 calories or 22 grams. So that kind of gives you a ballpark, right? Like, I don't want more than 22 for sure. And then healthy fats that are left over are not the ones that are the problem. And then sodium, we wanted to talk about that. Any product under 500 milligrams sodium is going to be technically a low sodium product. And you don't want more than, sorry, I have like a bug. You don't want more than 2,300 milligrams of sodium in a day. So those are just numbers to look out for. And then dietary fiber. So dietary fiber is one of the, we are nutrient deficient in the Western world in dietary fiber, because we're not eating our fruits and our veggies and our nuts, our legumes, and all of the places in the whole grains that we get our fiber. A product that is 5 grams or more has 5 grams or more of dietary fiber is considered high fiber. And this could be a whole talk in itself, and I debated about it, because a lot of products are adding things to their products to have them be higher in fiber and appear more nutritious when they actually might not be. So just buyer beware, read your labels, things that you can identify, and so on. But anything, if you have something that is supposed to be a healthy bread, say, and it has 0 or 1 gram of fiber, then it doesn't have the whole grain in it. All right. So you want to get 25 to 30 grams of fiber in a day. And the average American is getting 15, best case scenario. So I want you to consider that, because those are the scrubbers that take everything out and help us cleanse. And then sugar. So sugar, again, not evil, but this is not our grandmother's or our great grandmother's sugar anymore. When they used to have an apple pie on Sunday night and maybe a cookie, fresh homemade cookies once a week, we have it in everything. Ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, relish, dressings, you know the drill. Breads, cookies, crackers, everything. So to keep our added sugars, thank you CSPI, because they've added that to the label, you want to keep your added sugars to 24 grams, which is only 6 teaspoons. It is so easy to get 6 teaspoons or 4 times that before lunch if you're not paying attention. So that's for the added sugars. But other sugars that come naturally, like milk sugars and fruit sugars and things like that, they're not the ones that are killing us. It's the added sugars that are a problem. And to that end, I'm going to talk fat first. I wanted to talk sugars. I'm going to talk fat first because I gave you a pretty robust flyer or handout in your workbook that describes all the different kinds of fat. And like I said on the nutrition label, saturated fat and trans fats are the ones you want to look out for. The other fats our body needs. Every single cell in our body, from our brain cells to the tips of our toes, need healthy fats and omega fatty acids to do their job. This is a list of many of the types of fats that you can add into your diet. If you'll think about it, it's on the recommended plate, right? We want to add these fats and oils to our diet. Healthy fats do not make us fat. It's the lack of fat that our cells get sad. They need them to do their best work. And the imbalance of omega fatty acids is partially a challenge of our packaged processed food system, right? And so to combat that, we have to add in extra omega-3 fatty acids to balance out that ratio. Those can be found in fish, flaxseed, chia seeds, walnuts, and soybeans. All right, so I want you to really think about how you can get those things and these things into your diet on a regular basis. And now sugar. Okay. This I gave you in your workbook, 61 different names for sugar. But here's the thing. As I was continuing to research this and look into it, there's another list that I trust, 250 names for sugar that they're using on labels in our food system. And so I didn't want to print it here because I want to go through each one and make sure that it wasn't just hyperbole. But as I scrolled through, it was truth. And it's keeping this list handy and knowing that the products you buy could have 7 different sugars in it. And those are all added sugars in those products. Unless, of course, you're having molasses on its own, which is actually filled with iron and antioxidants and things like that. So buyer beware. All right, everybody good? All right. So as Benjamin Franklin so famously said, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And this is, oh, Victor, you raised your hand.
Yeah. So how do you tell the difference between the synthetic sugars and the highly processed sugars, refined sugars? Is it basically the same when you're talking about synthetic sugars?
Well, they process the same, but if it ends in, and I want to say TOL, ITOL, like erythritol, maltitol, those, if it ends in that suffix, those are the synthetic sugars. And the one, the name just escaped me. There's one that's okay, but it's plant-based. Can you think of it, Chloe? Off the top of my head, it'll come to me. That one's plant-based, and that one is okay. Oh, it's going to come to me. It'll come to me. And if not, I will definitely send you guys a note to let you know, because there's one that's okay. And then also the, I forgot that one too. There's another one I'm going to send you that doesn't raise our blood sugar in the same way, and that they recommend it for diabetic users as well. Stevia, thank you, Charlene.
Yeah. Could it be sugarcane is one of those that doesn't raise your sugar?
No, sugarcane definitely does. Sugarcane is sugar. Like that's flat out sugar. It's not the Rapidura. Rapidura is a little slower. Monk fruit. That's the one, monk fruit sugar. So that one is another one. It's got a different taste to it, and so does stevia. So you got to play around with it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And so what I want to do is, let me see what's next. This is one of the tips that I give to people to help them plan their day. And it's something that works for me, and I hope that it works for you. But we talked about the nutrition label, right? And we talked about the things that you need. The way that I look at a plate is, does it have these 5 things? Does it have your veggies? Does it have your whole grains? Does it have your protein? Are you having fruit? And are there healthy fats? So when I look at a plate, and we posted this on Instagram too, where I was in a hurry and I needed breakfast and I had this beautiful rye bread and I toasted it and I made an egg and I put it on the plate and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm a health coach. I can do this. And so I looked back and I thought, okay, what do I need? I've got the protein in the egg. I've got the whole grain in the rye bread. So I needed greens. And so I had 3 different greens in my fridge and I just chopped them up quick, threw them in the warm pan and put those on my bread. And then I looked over, I needed healthy fat and I had some avocado. So I put that on the toast. And then I needed fruit and I had some berries and I put those in a bowl. So those are my 5 things that make a balanced plate and give me all the nutrients, many of the nutrients that I need. But then I got inspired and I thought, God, what else could I add to this? And how else could I make this healthy? And I put everything but the bagel seasoning on it, because sesame seeds and chia, and I put some chia seeds and black sesame and white sesame seeds, they are powerhouses of antioxidants and nutrition. And then I put some red chili pepper flakes because that spicy is good for your digestion sometimes. I put turmeric on there and I can't remember all the things, maybe a little bit of olive oil, and I just loaded it up. And it was still not a huge breakfast, but it had a great amount of nutrition. And that's when I started really getting inspired by the idea that was inspired by Tim Spector, the scientist, who was talking about eating 30 different plant-based or plants in a week. So he's talking 30 veggies, right? Because he wants to get people to have fiber and veggies. And I think that's amazing. I'm sure he has a book and I'm sure he has a way to get this done. But then for me, I thought, what if I could, to increase my variety, what if I had 30 different things from my list of 5 every day to increase my variety? And so it sounded kind of crazy, but when I started to do it, and you can see this bowl of oatmeal, which is not mine, but I do a loaded oatmeal in the morning. And when I start adding things to it, when I think whole grain, healthy, I even put a spoonful of canned pumpkin in there. It's a veggie. You put some coconut on there, you got healthy fat, you put 2 different berries and a banana, you're up to 5 things. You add chia seed and flaxseed, you're up to 7. You add almond butter, you add nuts, you've got fiber, you've got antioxidants, you've got healthy fat. You put a little oat milk, and I kept going and I got to like 16. And it's just a little bit, right? It doesn't have to be the whole macro. This is a little bit. And I got to 16 things in one regular serving size oatmeal. And so that's just breakfast. So I knew that if I then have a salad for lunch, even if I'm putting chicken on there for my protein, and I'm putting nuts in there, and I'm putting seeds, and I'm toasting pumpkin seeds, and I've got radishes and carrots and celery and all these things, I can get to 30, no problem. Because it's about planning ahead for diversity in your day. And this is the tip, to look at your plate and just ask yourself, how can I do this differently? Thumbs up from Victor.
Mm-hmm.
And
we do have a question in the chat too from Robin.
Oh, yes.
She was asking how much chia seeds you need to start to satisfy daily requirements.
Well, it's a powerhouse of antioxidants, and some of which are not measured, right? And you've got some omega-3s and fatty acids and things like that in there. So I don't know measure for measure on the chia, but I would say that sprinkling it in on occasion together with the rest of your diet, if you're eating fish or you're adding in soybeans, that's going to get you your requirements that you need. Because I want that diversity, right? Is that helpful?
Yes, except that I'm allergic to both soybeans and fish. So that's why I'm leaning into the chia seeds. Yeah.
I know, that's tricky. And you're leaning into chia for omegas specifically?
Yes.
Okay. And what about, are you allergic to all nuts?
Yes,
And what about flax?
that flax is okay.
Yeah, because flax is a good one too. Flax is
Oh,
pretty
okay.
high, and
Yeah.
I can look up. I've looked it up before, but I don't have that number at the top of my
Yeah.
head as far as what that has with omegas.
Okay.
And
I take flaxseed oil and stuff. I was just feeling like it was like tablespoons and tablespoons that you were talking about. Once you start, like
no,
6 teaspoons of sugar.
I know. No. And we could always look at that too. We could sit down and look at that, and you can look at what you do generally in a week, and we can look at what you're getting and see
Mhm.
if there's a need for a supplement. You
Right.
know, I'm all about food first, but there's a beautiful thing for quality supplements for sure.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay, good.
And
Thank you. I didn't mean to derail. I was just trying to get a scope here of amounts. Yeah.
no, I appreciate the question, and yeah, if there's any questions, Chloe, just pop up, because I can't do it all.
I know there's one more from Charlene. She was asking if it's 30 things a day, a meal, or a week.
So Tim Spector has 30 like different veggies in a week. And I am challenging you to 30 different things from the list of 5 in a day. And then I gave you the example of, a loaded oatmeal bowl. It's not it's a regular bowl, right? For a person my size, can get 16 of those things, because it's not, a half a cup of them. It's a teaspoon and a tablespoon and that kind of thing. Okay, is that helpful? Okay, good. I just love these little challenges because it's a good way to just put a pin in it when you're building a plate or you're planning ahead and you're thinking about it. These are good questions to ask yourself. All right. So with all of those things said, knowing ahead of time and having that plan is what gets people there. And successful clients master the mindset around how they look at their day, their week, their month, their year. The top barriers that I often see for success are lack of sleep, really having a lack of structure around their days. If you're just swamped and you're just barely keeping your head above water, it's really hard to find 15 minutes to take a deep breath or go to the bathroom. I had a client recently who had a bathroom built in her office because she didn't have enough time to go across the office and use the bathroom. So I'm glad she's a client and we're working on it, but putting some structure around your day and how you structure your meetings and your time and thinking about yourself is one of the barriers that we work on in coaching. The thing I'm going to focus on today, though, is snacking, because the sleep and the structure we could be here all day, and that's what I'm here for as a coach. If sleep and structure are your issues, I'm here for you. Let me know. But snacks is what I'm going to talk about, because there's a lot of reasons why we snack. And we're going to talk about those in a minute. And what I want you to consider, we talked briefly about planning, right? I want you to consider planning ahead for your snacks so that you have a place when you arrive in the kitchen, or you're out going to grab a snack with your children or your friend or whatever it is, you have an idea in your head of what you're going to grab. Because it's a difference between arriving in the kitchen and knowing that you had cut up veggies and hummus that you were looking forward to versus opening up the cupboard and those potato chips or the cookies are all sitting at eye level, which is a whole nother trick too, right? We need to put those really low or super high so that you don't see them first thing. So I want you to consider planning ahead. I gave you this list in your workbook of a healthy snack list. These are all portable, on the go, grab and go. I actually, truth be told, made this list for a client who traveled a ton and shopped at Trader Joe's. So it's kind of what started us going, and I made that for them, but then I realized that we all need this. And there's a few notable things on here. Trail mix is great, but it has a healthy halo that if it says trail mix on it, somehow it's good for us. But you have to be careful that it's not filled with candy and dried fruit and oils and fats and things like that. The other one, salted nuts. So nuts are great. And Robin's allergic, I'm so sorry, because they're really a great little powerhouse. But the problem with nuts is that they're super easy to eat, like 100 before you even think about it. And a serving size of nuts is like 10 or 12. And so I would suggest you measure them out or just think about a handful. If you have a handful in a day for your snack, you're all good. But I would suggest not having the bag next to you, even though I have clients who put them in their car. But then if you put them in your car, make sure it's a handful that you take out, not just eating from the bag. The other one I want to mention are the oatmeal cups. That's my favorite little trick because you can throw these in your overnight bag. You can throw them in your carry-on on the plane. You can throw them in a lot really quickly in a lot of places because all you have to do is add hot water on the plane, at your house, when you arrive somewhere, whatever that might be, or before you go. And if you have nut butter packets, which you all may have seen or not, then you've got your protein and you've got your whole grain. And then you've brought an apple in this scenario. So you've got your fruit and you're 10 steps ahead of the game. All right. So I love that little tip. They're great to bring along with you. And then popcorn, super secret tip. When you get the 3-ingredient popcorn, sea salt, olive oil, organic corn, I would recommend because they're a high commodity crop filled with genetically modified organisms and pesticides and that kind of thing. So organic, sea salt, olive oil, it's a whole grain. It's not healthy when it's movie popcorn with all that oil on top. It's not healthy when it's microwave popcorn, but it is a whole grain and healthy for you to eat. And then at the bottom, I list water and sparkling water because those both count towards your hydration. A lot of times when we're starting to get snacky, we're thirsty. And so I 100% recommend drinking some water before you grab that snack and then give yourself a minute and see how you feel. Sparkling water, and herbal tea all count towards your hydration. And then coconut water instead of Gatorade and sports waters and those kinds of things, which you pay extra for the electrolytes that are already in coconut water. So I'm a big, big fan of that. All right, and this list is there for you. It's got a note section so you can print it and take it with you anywhere and write notes as needed. So then cravings. So cravings is something just beyond snacks, right? Snacks is one thing, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why we snack, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why we have cravings. So we're going to talk about that. I love this graphic because I often get people talking about their cravings, and it's when their whole plan just like is circling the drain. They were doing great, they were feeling great, and then the whole thing is just circling the drain, right? And these cravings. And so let's talk about these things. And there's a handout in there that has quite a few of these on there, but not all of them. So lack of primary food is when we are not taking care of our self-care. The primary food is everything that nourishes us off our plate. So when we haven't exercised or moved our body, when we haven't resolved an argument we've had with somebody, when we're hating our job, or we're just inundated with our job, or the kids are driving us crazy, whatever that is, and we've had no time, lack of primary care or the things that nourish us off our plate are often why we have cravings. These are not in any sort of order. Just occurred to me, I shouldn't have numbers on there. They're not in any sort of order. It's wildly different for different people. And I love this part of my job because we get to the bottom of it through working on food journals and working on talking it out and testing things out. Sometimes, as I said, when we have cravings, it's because we're thirsty. Sometimes there's this idea of yin-yang balance from Eastern medicine, and that when we've been, so it's hot outside, we want cold foods. It's cold outside, we don't want a salad. I mean, it's cold outside, we don't want a salad anymore. We want soups and warm things. Or if we've had too many cold things versus warm foods, we want the opposite. Because our body is always, always craving balance. And so I want to make sure that that's a consideration. What have I been eating? What am I feeling? And then inside out is this concept that talks about us wanting to have like the food that comforted us when we were kids, or the food, say we had something. So I was at True Foods the other day and I had their lasagna, and now I'm craving it like crazy because it's ridiculously delicious. And that's the idea of it's coming inside out. It's giving me that craving. Seasonally, we're animals, we crave things as the seasons change. So lack of nutrients means that our body, we may not have eaten enough to give us the nutrients or the variety to give us the nutrients, right, that our body needs to do its work. So sometimes that is different. So one example I can think of is for women going through their cycle, we often crave chocolate because we need iron and magnesium. Or we have hormone imbalances, and that's one of the reasons that we could be craving nutrients that our body needs to do its job. So then you look at your day and think, have I had a vegetable today? Did I have one yesterday? Maybe it's lack of nutrients. Hormones definitely play a role in our cravings, both men and women. Ghrelin and leptin are the hunger hormones that tell us to eat more or eat or stop eating. And those can get out of whack with our blood sugar and with liver, stuffed up liver. There's a variety of things that can happen. De-evolution is something that we might do to ourselves when things are going really well. And then all of a sudden, we mess it up and we self-sabotage. So that is definitely a reason why we have cravings that we can think about. Boredom, for sure, that gives us cravings. We might just be hungry. Have you eaten enough? And if you haven't, your body might crave salty, crunchy, or sweets because it just needs more energy in, and it's looking for quick energy because you haven't had enough to eat. When we're tired, we have more cravings. And then when we feel put upon, I don't know if this is the one I see the most, but when we are super busy, moms and dads and friends and coworkers and things like that, and we've been doing everything for everybody and all the pets and the kids and the neighbors and the aging grandparents and everybody else, and by the end of the day, we're just done and we haven't done anything for ourselves, that's what brings on that craving for that glass of wine or that craving for that piece of chocolate, or that craving of that thing that you do not have to share. It gives you your little moment. I've got one client who has these dark chocolate almonds and she hides them in the garage and she goes outside and takes them outside the house and like eats her little dark chocolate almonds. And because she feels put upon, and that's her little moment in the side yard near the recycling. She's out there eating her dark chocolate almonds. So we have to figure out a way to get her to do some self-care and recognize that self-care isn't selfish in order to stop her hiding in the recycling bin to eat her dark chocolate almonds. All right, so which one, and you guys can put it in the chat if you'd like, but which one sounds like you? Or maybe you're several of them, or maybe you're not sure, but this is a great list to just keep nearby and ask yourself when you're having these cravings and reaching for less nutritious foods. All right. And these are the tips to help you reduce cravings. And these are the areas I work on with my clients, among so many others. But again, I mentioned drink water before you indulge and wait a few minutes, see how you feel. Front loading your day means that oftentimes I see when people are not eating breakfast or they're drinking their coffee first without breakfast and they've had nothing to eat in the morning. And yes, I believe breakfast is an important meal. Yes, I believe we should eat something. The timing and what you eat are the things that we get to talk about as a bio-individual choice. Front loading your day means that you get that complete plate, those 5 things, right? Even if it's if you're not a breakfast eater and it's half a piece of toast and it's a little bit of olive oil and it's 1 scrambled egg, even if you're not much of a breakfast eater, I recommend that if you're having cravings and you're needing sweet treats in the afternoon and you're having that afternoon slump, eating breakfast can change all of that. And eating on a regular basis every 4 to 5 hours. Front loading your day, making sure you've had some time for self-care, tracking what you're eating. So it's an interesting tool to use if you need it. It can get kind of disruptive with your mindset if you're micromanaging it. But really looking at, like we did earlier with that worksheet, right? Having more of those worksheets and writing down the time of day, the kinds of things. And then what you're looking for are the 5 things, the variety, the timing. You know, am I eating every 4 hours? Am I eating enough? Is it varied and complete? You know, and then looking at how much stress you're under, because stress is a killer. And all of those stress hormones are messing with your hunger hormones and they're messing with your body and telling you that you you're not digesting anymore when you're under stress, and it's telling you that you're not hungry, but you are hungry, and it's very confusing. And then lack of sleep. So looking at your sleep hygiene is another area that you can look at and see how you can tuck in the edges to reduce your cravings. All right, so do we have another, is that more craving list in the chat?
Yes, we're getting it now.
Yay. All right, so can we do it all? Is there a perfect way to balance all of this? Well, there's a process that works, and I am going to have you guys fill this one out. If you haven't printed this out, what I want you to do is write down the different categories, and you're going to give it a number, from 1 being the lowest level of satisfaction you could possibly have, or 10 being hitting it out of the park. I love everything about it. So there's a couple of things. So spirituality, for example, all of these categories are defined by you. So spirituality for sure means different things to different people. And you get to decide what spirituality means and what importance that plays and where you're at in your own personal level of satisfaction. Because spirituality for some might be, I need to go to church, I need to go to synagogue, I need to be there all the time, I need to be part of the community. And if I'm anything less than that, I'm not satisfied. Other people, it's getting in nature. Other people, it's spending time with their grandparents. Like it's as varied as people themselves. And creativity could mean I'm an artist and I need to do art, and whatever that might be, like Suzanne, who's a phenomenal artist. And it's important to her to be creative and to do her art and to be incredible at that. Other people, it's writing the most amazing marketing plan that they possibly could for a client, and that feels creative. And so it's up to you. So then the middle of the circle is going to be your lowest satisfaction. The outside of the circle is your highest satisfaction. You put a dot on the line as to where you are personally. And or if you're writing it down in a list, you're going to do 1 to 10. And then you're going to, in the circle, you will connect the dots, because it's an interesting visual. And I want you to date this paper for yourself if you have it, because it's an interesting visual to go back and look at. It is not possible, in my experience, to have a 10 in all of these areas all of the time. We cannot attend to everything we have to do all of the time. And so the purpose of this exercise, if you guys have gotten there, you can connect your dots or look at your numbers. I want you to think about what areas you would like to put some attention on. I want you to consider one that you would really like to put attention on, your number one priority. If you'd like, you can do a second priority and maybe a third, but not more than that, because we can't do it all the time. So if you had to pick one, I want you to pick it, circle it, write it down, underline it, whatever makes sense for the worksheet you're working on. And then have a second and a third if you'd like. Does everybody have that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, yes. No, no, no. Thumbs up. Yes. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So now that we have that, what we are going to do, now what? Right? So this was a slide I loved, because if we were trying to do everything all of the time, this is how it would feel. And there would be a lot more traffic on this too. But so what we're going to do is we're going to pick that one that you circled, and we are going to put some goals around it. This is how I work. We set 6-month goals, 3-month goals, 1-month goals, and we break it down and we figure out how to move forward. So I want you to pick that one, and we're going to look forward to, I guess 6 months from now would be October 2023, right? That's all of May, June, July, August, September, October. So October 2023. And here's the question I want you to ask yourself. When you pick that thing, whatever it might be, what would success look like in 6 months if that area you want to put attention on is going how you would love? Not how someone else thinks it should go or how you think someone else wants it to go, but the question is, what would I love? Not me, you. What would I love success to look like in October of 2023? And then for those of you that have worked with me, you know this, and you've heard it a million times, but when the word should or shouldn't comes up in your head or your conversation, then you're doing it for external reasons. Because you're saying, well, I should ride my bike. I should cook more. I should do strength training. All those things might be true. But when you should do it, you're not, when you're saying you should do it, you're not, it's not so much what you would love. I would love to try kickboxing. I would love to do taiko drumming. Like, pick things that you would love and use the word should and shouldn't as a little yellow flag to caution you that you may not be marching to the beat of your own drum. And this doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to have some time, and we're going to walk through how this works with one example. And then I'm going to give you my example with all the warts and disasters that came along with it, because I do this. And so I can tell you how that's been going after we walk through this. So that you've got 6 months, you've got an idea, right? And so when that thing is successful in 6 months, what needs to happen in 3 months by July of 2023 in order for you to move closer to the success in October? So for some people, this might be a weight goal. This might be about meal planning. This might be it can be about finances. It can be about anything. But where do you need to be in July in order to be closer to October? It's hard. And I want you to, and the thing that we do when I'm coaching with people is we make sure that these goals are SMART goals. Many of you may have heard that before, but SMART goals are specific. They're measurable. They're attainable. We can't just decide we're going to be an astronaut in 6 months. Maybe we could be an astronaut, but we probably need more than 6 months. They are realistic and time-bound. That allows us to measure, right? What we can't measure, we can't succeed at. And then what would you need to do by May 27th? That's a month from now. I don't know how it got to be the end of April. It's crazy. But what do you need to do by May 27th, 2023, in order to get closer to that 3-month step? You guys are making progress? Thumbs up, thumbs up.
Yeah.
All right. So then the next step, so once I get these goals from people, I often send this out right away when we first get started coaching. They fill out some things. At our first meeting, we calibrate them, right? To make sure that they're specific, measurable, attainable, and that kind of thing. And then our job in those meetings is to figure out what our next best, easiest step is to move forward. So 2 weeks from now, what do you want to do from today when we get off this call until 2 weeks from now? What is your next best step you can take to move you closer to your May 27th goal? And for some people, this can be as simple as, there was a client I had who was drinking no water and she was having the afternoon slump, and she was stopping by Starbucks and getting her, Lord only knows, sugar, what do we call it? The warm caffeinated milk beverage of some sort.
Yeah.
And yeah. And her only homework for the next 2 weeks was to get a water bottle, measure how much it was, and to drink 50 to 60 ounces a day. And that's all she did. And she came flying back in after 2 weeks, and she had completely given up her Starbucks afternoon habit, had energy, felt like $1,000,000, got her kids drinking water. She was beside herself. So what can you do to move yourself along in the next 2 weeks on this one area? All right. So you're moving forward. So I'm going to give you an example of mine, and these are what happened in reality. And so my goal last year in November was by April, by now, I was going to be doing 2 to 3 classes of yoga regularly per week, focusing on strength as measured by the number of times I went and my endurance in the class. My 3-month goal was to be regularly calendaring each week my yoga classes, because my schedule fluctuates. My 1-month goal was to be at a studio or with a program and just know how I was going to be moving forward. And my 2 weeks homework was to experiment with online options, different challenges, different programs, talking to friends, going to studios, and that kind of thing. So here's the reality. My friend opened a studio 5 minutes walking from my house in, I think it was right in November when I was doing these goals. So I joined. I'm like, excellent. I'm going to start yoga in November. It's going to be amazing. And I'm going to try that. The opening got delayed until January. Complete disaster. I thought, well, wait, how am I going to be doing yoga by April if they don't open? So I was freaking out. So I pivoted because my goal talked about strength. So I pivoted to strength, joined up with a friend because I had that 2-week goal of experimenting with different friends and different ideas, right? And started a rebounder class with strength and cardio. Then I got COVID, and then I was gone, and then I felt crummy, and I fully fell back on all my goals. So now we're in January, and I thought, okay, but had I not had these goals written down, I would feel like I'd gotten nowhere. But I knew that I had been kind of working the plan, right? So the studio opens. I do 26 classes in January and February. I continue with the rebounder. I'm feeling like $1,000,000. And what happens? Of course, I get injured. So now I'm injured, and I have to pivot my focus again back to strength. And that's okay, because it still meets with my goals. And so then I had to go back to my original goal. What was my original 2 weeks? Focus on, look at different classes, look at different ideas. So I jumped on the Peloton 6-week strength challenge, and I've been doing that 2 to 3 days a week. I'm improving, I'm resetting my goals and reassessing for the next 6 months. But I was able to look back and know that I was making progress even while life was throwing all of these different things at me. I did throw a tantrum in the middle there because I felt like I was getting nowhere, to be sure, but these goals and this homework gave me the foundation to know what to do, how to get back on track, and where to pivot to stay true to my goals. Okay, so that's the reality of it. And having these things written is what really creates the power. And then sharing them with an accountability partner. This could be your spouse, your partner, your friend, your best friend, your workout buddy. Sharing it increases your odds of success by some huge percentage. I've read all sorts of different percentages, but it increases your possibilities of success. All right. So then what is your next step? So now that you have these goals, where'd Robin go? Now that you have these goals and you are moving forward and you've written down some homework, you can DIY this approach yourself for sure. Just like I health coach myself, right? And you can write down the goals, fill out the homework. You can take the tips and things you've learned today. I'm available for questions if you need me. I do have a workbook companion that I wrote back in 2020 that's available on Amazon. There's a link on my website that helps you dig deeper into the DIY approach. It has worksheets like this. It's not quite as pretty as I'd love, but it has worksheets, it has homework, it talks about sleep, it talks about meal planning. It's got all of those pieces and parts in it. So if that's something you want to do moving forward, I would recommend the book, if I do say so myself. And then you also should 100% sign up for a free consultation with me, because you can, and I'm here, and I'm interested in talking to you and drilling into your own issues. And then, of course, there's one-to-one coaching with me as well. For attending today, you get 20% off your coaching program. And when you book a sit down with me tonight, that kind of holds your discount. And then when you book a one-to-one coaching within about a week, you get a free roadmap extended session. That's a $375 value, because I love having people at the workshops. And so I love to give as much as I can. And you can find everything you need on my website. And I encourage you to sign up there. I think you guys are, I think Victor might be. There's the consultation link, there's future events, there's some cool self-tests, and we are writing a great monthly newsletter. And you can sign up to get some extra resources. So I would recommend you go there. All right, well, what questions do you have, or what are you guys wondering at this point? Well, thank you
Yes,
all for
thank you.
coming. All right, well, we will see you again. Keep an eye on events. We have some cool stuff coming up.